Lecture 6. Questions and thought exercises to get to know yourself more deeply. So here what I'd like to do is to share with you some of the best questions and thought exercises that I know to get you thinking deeply about who you really are. And some of these questions and thought exercises have really helped me over the years gain a high level of self-awareness, and you might not find every single one to be helpful, but be under no illusion, these are powerful questions and thought exercises in self-awareness, and so please do take the time to think thoughtfully and deeply about each one. Firstly, however, it's important to prepare for these questions and thought exercises, because as we all know, failing to prepare basically means you are preparing to fail, and preparation today leads to success tomorrow. And whilst we're on the subject of quotes about preparation and planning, the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. I love that quote. The more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. But anyway, let's not get too bogged down in quotes. The point is, I want you to put some time aside in your week or even your month to answer these questions properly. And you can start by even writing down exactly when and where you will do this exercise. It could be that you block out both mornings of a weekend to do it, or a couple of hours next week. It doesn't really matter as long as you do block out some time to do it and allow yourself plenty of time to think and reflect on these questions. I'd also encourage you to do this in an environment that you personally find relaxing or inspiring, or ideally both. And that might be different for everyone, but for example, you could do it in a nice coffee shop, you could do it in the lobby of a luxury hotel, you could do it whilst you're sitting on the beach, you could do it when you're out in nature or on a nice day overlooking some beautiful scenery, or maybe just in your living room. It doesn't really matter where, but it does need to be somewhere that you find relaxing or inspiring or both. Because you yourself need to feel relaxed, happy, positive, and in a good mood when you do this exercise. To help you do this exercise, I have included a document where I've listed all the questions and thought exercises that I'm about to go through anyway, so you can take that away with you and actually do them in your own time. But without further ado, let's get cracking with the questions now, starting with this one. Think about what you'd want to do with your life if you had £50 million in the bank. And that's after you've bought everything you've ever wanted to buy and after you've travelled everywhere you wanted to travel. And the reason I've pitched that question like I have is because so often when I've asked people in the past, what would you do if you had £50 million? They immediately come out with, I'd travel all over the world and buy this and buy that. And that doesn't really explore your true meaning and purpose in life. And that's the idea of this question, to really dig deep into what really drives you, what you genuinely love, what you'd want to do with the rest of your life, and what your true meaning and purpose in your life is. And by the way, the answer for some people might still involve travel, and that's fine. But what that will say to you, if that's the case, is that travel is clearly incredibly important to you and actually a significant part of your potential meaning and purpose in life. Or at the very least, that travel is a major part of who you are and what makes you tick and what makes you feel most alive. Next question. You are diagnosed with something that gives you 6 months to live, but they will at least be mostly active months where you will feel fit and healthy. How would this change you and what would you do? Next question. Think about this. Success doesn't change you, it just magnifies who you really are. So what will you be like when you are successful? It's a good question to think about because it's so true. As Will Smith said here, money and success don't change people, they merely amplify what is already there. Because so often we see people get a lot of money or become successful and it feels and sometimes looks to us like they've changed. And don't get me wrong, sometimes maybe they actually have genuinely changed, but I can guarantee you, and I can tell you with certainty, that in the vast majority of cases, we're talking at least 9 out of 10 of cases where people look like they've changed when they've got money and success. They actually haven't changed, they've just been able to become who they really are. Who they actually are gets amplified when they get money and become successful. Next question. What activities and interests did you have as a child that have been lost in adulthood? And that's a great question because so often when we're children we have hobbies and interests and we do things that often get lost when we become adults. And yet a lot of those things, although they might be specific to when we were children, at the very least offer hints at the kind of things we like and enjoy even now. And sometimes when people do this exercise, they discover lost passions and lost hobbies, things that they actually enjoyed as children that they could still enjoy to some extent, even as an adult. Next question. What do you feel is lacking or missing in your life, if anything? Next question. What makes you happy? And you can think of that in terms of micro happiness and in terms of macro happiness. In other words, think about what makes you happy in the moment And also think about it in terms of what makes you happy on that grander scale in terms of your life as a whole. What sort of things make you love yourself and love your life? What gives your life meaning and purpose and fulfillment and gives you that feeling of loving your life? And here's a thought exercise for you. Think about what you are good at, which will probably be a combination of talents and or passions. And sometimes asking other people what you're good at is useful with this. Because so often we're blind to what our talents are, we're blind to what we're good at. Because so often when we're good at something, we find it easy. And because we find it easy, we just think it's no big deal. We think everyone's like that. And so when you ask other people, you might be surprised at what they come up with. They might tell you things that you're good at that you just didn't think were a big deal. And so it helps you to identify what your true strengths are. And of course, sometimes things that you're good at will also be things that you're passionate about. Because although sometimes you might be good at something just because you've got natural talent, there might be other things that you're good at because you've worked hard at them, because you're passionate about them. Next question. When things are going well, what is it in the moment that is causing that? Next question. What comes easy to you that others find hard? Or to put it another way, what is fun and enjoyable to you that to others feels like hard work and a grind? And again, this question helps to identify your natural talents and natural gifts and what you're naturally good at and where your strengths are. Next question. How do you want to be known and remembered after you've gone? As part of answering that question, you could even write your own eulogy. Next question. When do you feel most alive and what causes that? What are you doing when you feel most alive? And on a similar vein, when do you experience flow, also known as being in the zone? Is it a particular activity or routine that puts you in the zone? And finally, to finish off with a bit of a thought exercise, if there were no people in the world but everything else was exactly as it is, what would you do? And this is a bit of a weird one where you just have to imagine this hypothetical impossible world, but just imagine this hypothetical impossible world where everything is exactly the same as you know it. Shops, your job, cars, everything's the same, except there's no people. Now obviously that would be impossible because you need people to serve you at shops and you need people to do this, that and the other, but just imagine that everything in the world was exactly as it was, houses and everything, but there were just no people. What would you do? Would you still drive the same car? Would you still live where you're living? Would you still buy what you buy? Would you still do what you do? And this is a good thought exercise for thinking about how you'd live your life without the opinions and judgments of other people. Without the influence of your parents, your friends, your colleagues, or society in general, how would you live your life?